Good evening, everyone. All right, good evening, everyone. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Awesome, okay. Well, welcome to the second annual CIP meeting, budget meeting, and I appreciate everybody being here tonight. We are now in the jury room in the basement of the courthouse. So if you've not been down here picked for jury duty, this is usually what the room is, and I want to thank the clerk of court, Rebecca Mentek. I don't know where there she is. Okay, she's in my sight line. For holding us, opening up the courtroom the courthouse and down here to host this gathering tonight. So I wanted to say thank you to that. Before we start, I'm going to have everybody go around and do a roll call and just kind of say your district number, and if you are part of staff, say where you are and how many years you've been with the county. So kind of like what we did at the budget vision meeting, so people can get acquainted with where you're at. So again, Samantha Kerkman, County Exec.
Hi, everyone. I'm Monica Uhas, Chairman of the County Board. I represent District 17 in the middle of Pleasant Prairie and West. I also am the Sheriff's County Board Supervisor.
Daniel Gashke, County Board Vice Chair, District 7, which we're in right now.
Jeff Gans, District 3.
Roselle, Office Manager for the County Executive.
Sarah Kirby, County Board Supervisor for District 8.
Gabe Rudo, District 12. Aaron Caro, Supervisor, District 23, Far West End.
Chris Walton, CFO of Public Works.
Eddie Merrill, Finance Director.
Arna Bench, Budget Director with the county 25 years. As this last week. Nick Ruth, Finance Manager of Public Works. I've been with the county for 8 years.
Wade Brown, District 11.
Frederick Brookhouse, District 16.
John Franco, District 13.
Or Belsky, Supervisor, District 4, the north side of Kenosha.
Andre Scama, County Board, District number 6.
Bethany Menz, County Board Supervisor, District 2.
Bob Pitts, Chairman of the Board of Trustees at Brookside.
John Jansen, Human Services, 33 years.
Dave Schwartzen, District 15, Village and Town of Summit.
John Morrissey, District 9, City of Kenosha, West District, Board Supervisor.
See that, I decided that. No, I won't say what I said.
John Poole, District 20, Paddock Lake and Salem.
Bill Grady, District 1, includes Carthage College and the 2 Point South.
Kelly Clark, Fiscal Services Manager for Sheriff's Department, and I've been here for a month.
Justin Miller, Chief Deputy, Kenosha County Sheriff's Department.
Tony Gonzalez, Kenosha County Sheriff's Department Captain, 15 years. Dave Turner, Sheriff, 25 years. Frank Martinelli, Project Manager, Department of Public Works, 14 years.
Greg Polk, Department of Public Works, 2 books.
James Wallace, Golf Division Director, 3 years. Matt Strino, Director of Facilities Division, been with the county 11. I'm more of the Director of Parks, and I've been here for 2 years.
Shelley Billingsley, Director of Public Works and Development Services, 2 years.
Mike Bashinelli, IT, been here with the county for 23 years.
Chip Stocker, District 14.
Brian Scheffler, Register and Probate and Juvenile Clerk here at the Kenosha Circuit Court. Been here for 6 years.
Karen Decker, County Board Supervisor, District 22.
Jennifer Mack, Deputy Register of Deeds, been with the county for 19 years. And future registrar. Yes.
Reggie Walagora, County Clerk, and I've been in August, it was 20 years.
Nice.
Linda Fadala, Administrator for Brookside Care Center and Willowbrook Assisted Living. Been here 6 years.
Becky Mataska-Menting, Kenosha County Clerk of Courts. I've been at the counties for 25 years. Stacy Ramon, the public clerk's office, or the administrative assistant, I've been here for them.
Felix Garcia, District 10.
Is that everything?
Guess what?
Oh, Joe Potente, Communications Manager for the county for about 7 years. Here this evening in this odd seat in the corner to facilitate recording this meeting, which is a good public service announcement. If you can use your microphones, when you're speaking to the whole room, that would be great so the recording picks it up. This is not being video streamed. It is being recorded, just the audio. It'll be posted to YouTube along with the visuals that will appear on the big screens.
Started. I'd like us to all stand so we can recite the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we get started, I wanted to thank the chair and the vice chair and the finance chair, Jeff Gentz, for being along on this journey. I think it's really important that we have this discussion together, and I really appreciate their leadership and being here tonight. I'd also like to thank my finance team across the way, Chris Walton, Patty, Barna, and Nick. Without you, tonight wouldn't be possible. And so I really want to thank you for putting everything together and being here. I'd also like to thank Joe and Stacy and Jill for organizing everything, getting the food tonight. I do appreciate their knowledge and just making it all happen and coming together and working with the facilities team as we pick the location. Last year we met at Brookside in a little bit larger room, so it was a little easier. So again, my sight lines are a little off here tonight. I can't see everybody. So as the meeting goes on tonight, if you please raise your hand, because I can't see everybody in the room tonight, so it is a little bit difficult for me. I also wanted to say we're going to kind of adjourn and go upstairs right now and begin the tour of the courtroom. And we're going to limit the discussion to 45 minutes. So we will be back down here around 6:45 to tour. And Frank is going to lead that with his team upstairs so that we can go up and look at the courtroom tonight and see where the project is. So you might want to bring your pamphlet with. And if we did send this out yesterday, so if you didn't get a copy yesterday or get to see it yesterday, there is one on everybody's table. If you don't have one, please let us know so that you can jot down your notes and be able to ask questions. So again, we're gonna just, if you need help, there on the bathrooms too. There's bathrooms by the door out there. So if you do need to use them, and then there are bathrooms up on the first and second floor, right? So again, we'll excuse, and I'll have Frank lead the way upstairs.
Second floor, everyone. Either take the stairs or the elevator or else.
Everybody is returned down here. All right, and again, well, I hope that you found that informative, and I know there's still a few questions. And Frank, I know he's back downstairs here. So if you do have questions, feel free to reach out to Frank. He can get you any of the further discussion on the architect and such going forward. And now we're going to turn it over to Chris. If everybody has their packet in front of them. All right, and like I said, the screen hopefully will go to the packets and
Clicker's not here.
the clicker, Nick isn't back yet. Okay, so we
Push the
are,
button if you want.
okay, we'll improvise up here.
Just say when, Chris.
Oh, yeah, the binder. All
Joe
right,
does everything.
multitasking up here.
So we'll first start with just an overview of what our capital budget looks like. I know we got a lot of new supervisors this year, so we can just start with an overview of what we're actually approving, or what you guys will actually be approving in November, is just the 2025. We do provide a 5-year, to let the remainder 4 years are informational purposes, let you guys know what projects we have on the horizon, what we're looking into, what's upcoming, etc. We also did, as we get into some of these other pages, as of last year, started highlighting blue certain projects. What that notates is a project that was not within the 5 years and is now in this next current budget. It just brings attention to it. There are certain reasons why it may have popped up. It's one of the things that we're working on in our vision to make sure that we have less and less blue every year, and hopefully coming down the line, we have no blue and all our 5 years come to fruition and nothing pops up out of the ordinary, but things do happen. So this first page is just a very high level overview. It breaks down each division and what the overall spending capacity of that is. So that's why you see the 34 million. That is not what we were look to bond. Below that, it breaks out bonding revenues, the carryovers, reserve, and levy, which usually there's not much when it comes to capital. So right now, the number that we're looking at is just under 23. We still obviously have some more work to do. Everybody knows, or so everybody does know, this is just our first draft. We have many more meetings where we talk about things that are going to get kicked out, move around, different things like that. The second page is just pretty much that same front page, but it's more detailed as the bonding per division, so you can see it on a level as opposed to just expense. So we're just going to flip right over to page 3. This is more or less the schedule that you'll see it in the budget book. In regards to the capital projects, it will typically start with executive, which first is information technology, 1.4 million all the way across the board. For those who have been here for a while, it used to be 1.9, but that changed due to some accounting leasing. GASB 96, as Patty loves to refer to it. So that's why you now see 1.4. There's a whole conglomerate of projects that are make up that 1.4 that on another day, I'm sure Mike Passionelli would love to talk to you guys about. We'll jump down to the land information. So why you see $15,000 here, that last year in 2020, well, this year's 2024 budget, we did have funds that went towards the LiDAR acquisition. This remaining 15,000 is additional funds that they need to complete it as they've gone through the project, as they've narrowed down the scope of what needs to be done. This is the additional funds that are necessary to complete that.
Chris, can you just talk briefly about that for the new supervisors?
The LiDAR?
Yeah, what that is.
I do. Yeah, I do have. Give me a second.
Scott, our land information specialist, he is not here tonight, so.
I did talk to Scott coming up. So the extra funds are going to give us a head start on obtaining derivative products related to the LiDAR deliverables. These derivatives will provide us better hydrology related data and also position us for future 3D floodplain and topographic modeling.
Perfect. Thank you.
That cleared it up.
Yeah.
Wetlands, floodplains.
Yeah, to my knowledge, it's like the GIS, the mapping that we use for all divisions, especially public works, land development, planning development, use this mapping in everyday operations, and that's what this does. It brings it up to date. Typically, it's an every 7 to 8 year thing. We did it a little early last year because we were able to get some funding to offset it, and this remaining 15,000 finishes that for hopefully another 8 years. If there's no other questions in regards to the first two, the last one here is just CABA. I'm sure many of you familiar with that. That is the county's donation towards that, towards helping businesses and other developments come to the Kenosha area. One of the biggest ones lately is the 22nd
Most recently, we just gave to West Rock and Pleasant Prairie. They are part of the high impact fund. That was the most recent one. The Kin neighborhood was a different, or not the Kin neighborhood, but the Gorman Street was a different. We reserved for that project last year. Or different, right?
Okay. Before we flip, does anybody have any questions on any of the three on the first page? Okay, we're gonna flip to the fourth. As we get into some of the bigger divisions, I'm gonna tell everybody right now, I'm not gonna go line by line. We'd be here all night. I'm gonna hit the blue streak lines, and I'm gonna hit some of the bigger projects that some people may have questions on, some things that we'll hopefully get a little bit more detail or back up to it. The first one up here in Brookside, they have a furniture and equipment replacement, which is an every year thing. There's a little bit of extra in 2025 because they have 12 adjustable beds that they are changing out. That's on top of what they typically do every year during their furniture and equipment refresh. And the building improvements, this is a lump sum number. As they talked about kind of piecemealing things in the courtroom, we're getting more and more having building improvement lines within each division. It allows for refreshing carpet, replacing doors, getting new furniture, different things like that to keep the buildings looking nice and operational, and being able to provide that through the capital budget. This kitchen floor replacement is highlighted blue. It is new to 25 on a per line basis, but it is something that we knew that was coming up. It used to be in the building improvements number. It was one of those things that was lumped in, but because the number has grown to what it is, this 105,000, it's necessary to break it out for its own line. What this is replacing the floor throughout the Brookside kitchen. It's original to the building. It has a lot of cracks. It needs to be replaced. That's a little over half of the dollars. The other half of the dollars is to take all of the equipment out and put all the equipment back in. And that's what makes up that total dollar. If there's any questions on Brookside? Oh, yeah. If there's any questions, we do have Ms. Bogdell that can help answer any of the questions. I will drop to Willowbrook.
Gabe's having a hard time hearing, so if we could keep our chatter, please raise your hand and try to speak directly to Chris.
Willowbrook, this is again something that we knew was coming up, but Willowbrook and Brookside, because of how they are accounted for and funded for, they need to be separate. So we were not able to put this into the building improvements in which Brookside lies. So it needed to be broken out and be its own line within Willowbrook. Pretty self-explanatory that the courtyard doors at the facility are going to be replaced. I'll drop down to the medical examiner. $10,000 does not buy a vehicle. This is in addition to the funds that we budgeted last year. This is the necessary money, similar to LiDAR, that they need to complete to get the vehicle that they need. Pause for any questions that anybody may have on this page 4.
I have a general question. And I think I understood, at least on the land information and Brookside, that funding is just extra, but why would we bond for $15,000, $16,000, and $10,000? I'm guessing those are like $16,000 for Willowbrook. Why would you bond for that kind of money?
Those are the doors that they need to, their capital expenditure that will last past its, last past 10 years. So again, it was an expense that they asked for, and again, is needed, and Administrator Bogdell is here to speak to it.
I'm not saying it's neat.
So-
It seems strange that we bond for that kind of down.
The county's threshold for capitalization is 10,000, so that is the benchmark. Now, granted, the 10,000 for the vehicle is just extra. That total, I think, is 65,000. We bonded 55 before, but the county does have a $10,000 limit that was just recently moved up from 5,000 in 23. And then other departments such as like highways, because they report to the state, they have different capital thresholds, which is actually 7,500, not the 10,000. So that is why you will see some of these quite smaller dollar amounts that you figure, well, why don't we do this with operations or maintenance dollars? But that is just the policy the county holds at a $10,000 threshold.
Also, if we're talking about different levels of capitalization, Brookside has $1,000 limit per the state. So that doesn't mean that we're going to bond $1,000, but capitalization, we're capitalizing items up $1,000 or more.
Any additional questions before we flip over to the next page? Page 5, this is the facilities division. I'll start at the top one, the Civic Center development. Typically, as you'll see in the future years, $100,000 is what we have bonded for. This goes towards development or land that may pop up on our radar that we want to be able to have funds to buy to expand our footprint. The 25,000 here, because we don't have anything coming up that's on our radar, we did not feel it necessary to put $100,000 in and just let it sit. However, the 25,000, we do have to plan to go towards a roofing refresh survey. So last year we did, for those who were here, we talked about how we did a survey in 2015, and that's where we were basing kind of our schedule of replacing a lot of these roofs. Well, that survey is now 10 years old. So we're going to work with a consultant and get a new one out here, get a new one for 2025 that'll tell us what roofs need to be looked at, and then we can put them in our 5-year CIP. The next blue one, the courtroom renovations / furniture upgrades. We kind of already even notated this upstairs. This is stuff where rather than kind of burying it within its own of the building improvements of the Civic Center on itself, because there's going to be courtrooms hopefully coming up once we get beyond the ceremonial courtroom that are going to need to be renovated, and furniture and furnishings that are going to need to be upgraded. We put a line in here that will kind of don't designate dollars towards that every year. You can see out in 2028, that's an informational year, but we know that there's going to be a courtroom coming up to refresh, and that's why you see what you see. The next blue item here is the building access security system. It splits 110,000 each year for a total of 220. In previous years, we replaced all the software for all the door accesses throughout the county. What this does is replace all the hardware for all the scan cards and all the accesses going throughout the building. So prior years was the software, and this year is the hardware. I got some right here. Thank you. I will go to the exterior improvements next. Similar to kind of keeping up on maintaining all of our buildings, a lot of our buildings are nearing that 30-year mark of being in existence. We want to be able to stay on top of preserving these buildings before allowing them to get too far where it's going to cost us a whole heck of a lot more money than what we're putting in these lines. We've done some of that work at the KCAP. That was in the 2023 budget. We didn't have anything in the extending years, which is why you now see it blue in 2025's budget. We're bringing it back. We want to be able to notate. We don't have anything specifically in these future years, but it's likely that we will as we take surveys and go around the campuses. The next blue line down here that we have is the isolation rooms at KCDC. What these are padded cells that KCDC does not have. The PSB does have some. They obviously need some of these for security purposes, isolation purposes. With a lot of the improvements that are going on between the two buildings, there's a lot of shuffling between inmates, between buildings and buildings, and it's something that they need to have over at KCDC. Another one that I'll just kind of pinpoint on is the KCC office renovation. This one has been put on hold for a little while. It has mainly been put on hold so we could readdress some of the design, some of the needs, but also because the KCC generator was being put into place and we did not want to do all the renovations, have it hook up to the old generator, and then have to reconfigure a lot of different things. that generator should be in place and going at the end of the fall of next year. So then we can start progressing with this. We can get the design. This is funds that we have split, at least for now, between the 2 years for that progress, that project to progress. The other big one on here, there's a 1.5 million for HVAC units. We did have some funds in the 2024 budget that allowed for some down payment and design work on this HVAC. This is the remaining that's going to cost for the construction of the pretrial building. And then lastly on this page is what you have for the ceremonial courtroom. We did obviously just have a quite lengthy discussion. Again, as county exec notated, if you guys have further questions, if you feel like something didn't get answered, something pops up after the fact, reach out to Frank, reach out to me. We'll definitely reach out to Steve, the consultant, and we'll hopefully get any answers that you guys are looking for. Does anybody have any questions on any of the projects I did or did not talk about, or any other general comments?
Yeah, I'm seeing 3.6 million here, wasn't it? Didn't we talk about a bigger number than that?
Yeah, so the ceremonial courtroom, we have broken it out on 2 different lines here just to break out. The top line of that 820 would actually be like the HVAC portion of it. The 3.6 would be, yeah, the 4 million less than what we
Adds up now.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I will be putting this on the next finance agenda meeting, so anybody who still has questions can come to that meeting, have them answered as well. So just so everybody knows. Thank you.
Is there a reason why you're borrowing additional funds in 26? Just trying to split it up, or?
Right. So that would be the first year where the revenue of the 2.233, that's the funds that we know that we already have on hand to be able to get. The expense is breaking out the bonding between the years because we won't need to physically spend those dollars in 2025. Obviously, some of those will roll over to 2026 where we'll do the actual spending. The revenue of 100 grand, that is an estimate out there of hopes where if this project takes off, other donors may feel generous, compelled, and donate additional funds. Every additional dollar we get donated, or every dollar that we don't use of contingency, obviously drops that bounty.
So to the Tawani Foundation, they gave us $100,000 spread over 4 years. If we can match it, we've already received a match of about 50,000. So we're hopeful, as you know, people see the project and see progression, we will get that other match. And we, again, every once in a while we get a larger donor, 10 or 20,000. But, as the community sees it, we've been doing a lot of great work, doing some PSAs, trying to, for those folks that want to add a little bit to that bottom line. So that's where that line.
Is the intent for the 2 lines there to add up to the total amount for the numbers? Because the total is 6.6
Yeah, so what that
$6,665,000. So
what that total is going to signify, we're deducting that economy of scale, we're deducting the money that we've already bonded. So when you take those 2 numbers out, it should come to roughly a $7,000 difference, which is a rounding between the number being 4818 and 4820, just based on what was put in. So the 6665 that you probably just tallied up, if you add in 400,000 of that, you get to 765. And if you add in the economy of scale of 125, you get to 7190, 7180, somewhere along those lines, which should be close to the 7187 that's on that page 5 that you're looking at. Again, that's just the rounding of the numbers.
Okay.
If there's nothing additional, we'll flip right over to page 6. Here we don't have anything blue, which is good. The dorm enhancements, as a lot of people in the room may know, it was addressed last year where they're having a lot of issues over at the PSB where inmates will flood the cells, flood the rooms, and that now drains down into the detectives bureau and everybody below. What this is attempting to do is go dorm by dorm, replace all the plumbing so that it will shut off. It does not continuously run. We stop getting this flooding. We stop getting this water damage. And then it will also address some other things that while they're in there, they can update because everything in that PSB jail room is original. The underground storage tanks, we had, I believe, 700,000 in this year's budget. We thought that that was a good estimate. We did the design, we went out to bid, we got the bids back. This extra 250 is based off of the bid results that we've seen. In order to actually conduct that project, this is the additional funds that we're going to need to complete that. And the air handling units are similar to the pre-trial. In this year's budget, we had design, we had down payment equipment. This extra 625,000 is to complete the construction of those replacements. I'll jump down to the Human Services building. Nobody have a heart attack. This is funds that we did account for as a part of the overall project of this. The 1.2 is offset by funds from the Human Services building that we accounted for from the beginning. What this does is it's going to finish the remainder of the money that we would need for the furniture, the IT, and architectural design funds. If anybody's driven by the area recently, you can see that they're definitely progressing. There's steel up from the first and second floor in the northeast corner. They have the stairwells encased. They're starting to get some of the roof decking on there. We've spent a little over half of the grant money that we've gotten. For those who aren't aware, we got 9.85 million from the Neighborhood Investment Foundation or grant from the DOT. We spent roughly half of that. And then the remaining funds of roughly 8 million spent is split between what Bears accumulated and what we've spent between our funds. And then just to finish out the page before we kind of jump to questions, this capital projects, energy efficiency project and HVAC replacement projects. This is something Matt Storino and his team, they work endlessly to replace a lot of these light fixtures, get them more energy efficient. We do get kickbacks from a lot of that. They have a plan. It goes many years going out. We have future buildings. A lot are going to address the courthouse and the PSB, totaling up to roughly $400,000 over the next couple of years. That's what this $100,000 is going towards. And same thing with the HVAC. We can't always just plan for everything to line up where it's been 20, 30 years. It's time to replace it and it's going to replace. Sometimes these things crash and they are very expensive to replace. We need to be able to have funds on hand to be able to replace units at specific times. So now I'll leave this page kind of open to any questions that anybody may have. And seeing none, we're going to flip right over to page 7. Oh, the golden child of CIP. And the only reason I say that is because if you notice at the bottom line, we're looking at $0 in bonding. It didn't always used to be that way, but as of recent years, golf has done very well. And in order to kind of take the burden off of the county as a whole, they're becoming more and more self-sufficient. Truly, that word used to hurt a lot of supervisors. That now kind of holds true. Notating some of the blue things on here, it's some equipment that they need to help better run and operate their courses. They're obviously becoming very utilized. It's year after year that they're breaking historic rounds and revenue that are going towards all of this. So I won't get into too much detail of some of this equipment here. The big thing here though is the golf course improvements. You'll see $1 million, $1 million, $1 million. This has been an ongoing process that we started, I believe, 2 years ago, in which they've already renovated the red course over at Brightendale's Park or golf course, which is the 9 holes. They are moving the putting green, the practice area, and renovating the driving range. The money that we're looking at in 25 and part of 26 is going to switch and start to look at the maintenance building. It's something that they drastically need. They have this equipment, they have the materials that they need to get out of the elements and into a building that's able to or sufficiently hold what they have. Jim Wallace, our golf director, can definitely speak to that a whole lot better than I can. I will be the first one to tell you, I know a little about a lot. I'm an expert to nothing, so if there's any questions, you could definitely use me, but I will point you to the people that can definitely get you the concrete answer. So, are there any questions in regards to the golf? All right, let's keep it moving. We got a football game tonight.
I second that one.
Okay, page 8, Parks and Recreation. We have the multi-use trail development. They're just believe getting close to finishing up the feasibility study of this. What these funds here are going to be for the design, and then future years will be construction. This is offset by CMAC and TAP funds, as well as Parkland Development funds. And for those who don't know, I guess Parkland Development is a fund that we use for park improvements and betterment. It's a fund that we put to use to offset the bonding that we can continue to use and grow. Some of the money that we get from the beer gardens and mountains adventures go into this to help give back to the parks. And you see that same offset with these playground improvements. Reserves of 150 grand. In blue is a donation. This is from a donor who wants to close out their books, a not-for-profit. They specifically want these going to Oktoberfest, so Old Settlers Park. If this playground does not go there, we hold these funds until when we do address the playground there, and the funds go to a different park, Brightdale, whichever may be next up on the list. Next in blue is a mobile stage.
That particular donation has to go to
Right.
Settlers Park. So again, the not-for-profit raised it. It's specific. So if it doesn't go to a playground, it could go for a renovation of the building out there, some other project that they're knowledgeable of, but they really wanted to go towards the playground, so.
Good. The mobile stage, this here is, some of you guys may have seen different versions of it. The city has one. It's a stage that you can bring to different parks. You can hold different events with it. I think we have it out at our picnic in the park. We can set a stage up on it. They can have the acoustics. We can now bring this to Silver Lake. We can bring it to Fox River, wherever an event may be held. That's what this funds are going for. It allows for more access, especially out to the west end when a lot of the things are held over at Petrifying Springs on the east end. Parkland Development, I just kind of notated to everybody. The 150 is pretty much made up between Boundless and Beer Garden. The 75 is a donation that we have and have been getting for as long as I've been here, and beyond that, from Waste Management in agreement with the dump, and as well as them doing some services for us. I will jump to the Pike River. This is simply just to account for additional grant funds that we are expected to receive. In last year's budget, we had $1 million offset of grant. We're thinking that we'll get an answer come January that there will be additional funds to that. That's what these additional funds are. Anything that's not used can obviously be repurposed, not bonded, etc. And the final portion of this is the building improvements of Kemper Center, 520 grand. As we've kind of gone along, Frank has given a lot of presentations at a lot of the Public Works Committee meetings. This is for the exterior and for the roofs and a couple of other possibly minor improvements here and there. This is large in part for the exterior. This covers roughly 350 grand of exterior. The remainder is roofs. There's also contingency, and there's design for roofs and exterior for the future year, because in order to do the construction in 1 year, you obviously need to do the design in the year prior. Are there any questions in regards to anything in the parks?
Songs Ryan Kemper, in our meeting discussed about the basic structure, integrity of Kemper, making sure that it had good bones, foundation especially.
Supervisor Brady, could you use your mic, please?
Sure. And Mike? All right, thank you. In our committee, we had made comments that were concerned about Kemper having good structural integrity before we proceed too much further down the path with, future RFPs, renovations, things like that. So to make sure that the foundation is in good stead, make sure Kemper's bones are in good stead, we had conversations about including line item in this budget to make sure that an analysis of that could be done. It is probably beyond the county's expertise to do that. We'd probably have to have an outside consultant or firm. So my question is, do we see this in any of the line items on this page?
You don't see it on this page. However, we have taken that into account. We'll likely see it as part of the operations budget that's put forth. We plan to, similar how the Kemper study was paid for out of Parkland Development, similar studies would be paid for out of the same fashion.
So will we see that in future pages in our report this evening, or that's too?
No, and coming October when we're presenting to the committee and then to finance our portion of it, it'll be within some of those numbers there.
Very well, thank you. Answer my question.
Supervisor Belsky.
I'm curious as to the Petrifying Springs maintenance shop. $1 million is forecasted for 2027. What is that for?
So similar to the needs that golf is having, Parks has a lot of these same needs. They were trying to, for the last year and a half, 2 years, work out something where they could use one building and save money, coexist. Every time they look at it, nothing seems feasible for either department. It's either gonna have to be on an extreme end of one side or the extreme end of other. We can't find a general location to where it would fit in the middle and not sit in the middle of the golf course and things of that nature. So this is out in future years, just to say that it's a possibility to come up. It may not end in 27. It may be split. It may get pushed. It's just to become on the radar of something that the Parks Department is looking at as a need.
Supervisor Belsky.
You know, this question is for you. The shoreline revetment, right? Where are we with that?
Well, we are seeking federal dollars on that particular project. Right now, we are looking at a redesign of what was originally proposed, because that was a $27 million, $30 million price tag. I know that the city did their project and was able to come in significantly less. So right now we're doing a re-engineering study on the dollar amount. I know that Director Moore is in the back and he could answer more questions on it too.
So nothing is going to happen with the most vulnerable spot now on our shoreline for probably another 2 years.
At least a year, correct. Because again, we have submitted our request for congressional dollars as well, seeking any dollars to help us offset that if we could. I know that several other communities along the Lake Michigan Lake Shore have asked for similar dollars from the federal government. So that's where we're at right now.
And I'm saying this for everybody else's benefit, not specifically yours, because you know how I feel. But the city of Kenosha has spent millions of dollars on revetment of the shoreline, and the Kemper shoreline is the most vulnerable spot now on our lakefront. And I would ask, maybe I can convince the sheriff to use his drones to actually get some footage of what it looks like from the lake, the shoreline, because the past couple weeks, there's been a lot of beach hazard. I've been down there. It's really, really deteriorating. We just spent $4 million on improvements to Anderson, and the shoreline is getting extremely close to that building. And we just can't keep pushing it down the road. If we need to spend CIP dollars on this, we've got to start looking at it and start fixing it. That's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Appreciate the feedback. Any other questions?
We will flip over to page 9. This is the first of 2 pages for the highway department. We typically break it out between equipment and road project, being that road projects take up roughly half of what the capital improvement budget that you're gonna look at. New to this, you'll see a trench box. What this is now, with Greg at the helm, he's hoping that we can start changing out some of these culverts with our own crews rather than going to a third party and paying a premium to do so. In order to do that, they need a trench box that when they're down deep enough, it does not cave in and collapse. That's what this does. The tandem axle trucks, for some of you that have been here, last year, I told everybody that we were going away from tandem axles, and now you see it back in here, and that's why it's blue. There is a reason for that. It is becoming more and more likely that brine will be, utilized, mandated in the coming years. It's not now. We are one of the few counties in the state that actually don't use any brine. I think we're maybe one of two. So it is something that we're looking at. And in order to do that, we need bigger trucks that can hold bigger capacities because there's more brine per gallons used than the calcium chloride that we're currently using. A lot of what you see here, this obviously, again, this is a draft. We're working with our shop superintendent and our highway department to figure out what build slots that we can get for trucks. For those who don't know what a build slot is because these trucks are so big, so specific to what the highway department needs, we have to have them built. In order to have them built, we need a build slot in order to get into. When COVID hit, build slots became very hard to get. So it pushed back some of our replacement years. We have some money still on hand. The rumblings is that we could possibly get 4 build slots in 2025. If that is the case, that's what some of these funds are going towards. Being we haven't had more than 2 in the last 3 years, I'm not holding my breath towards that. We're hopefully getting an update on that this next week. Our shop superintendent is going to have discussions with the max salesman. Hopefully we can get a better idea, but you may see some of these numbers moved out in the final budget or in October. Are there any questions? Any of the equipment?
Treasurer Carroll.
Do these costs in here, are these like for the full new value of the equipment, or do they include any of the salvage value from, selling old equipment or anything like that?
So what the county has found out is that rather than trading in pieces of equipment where you would see the net deduction on this line here, we get more value by going to auction. And when we go to auction, it doesn't necessarily come back and offset the division of the truck that you're seeing. It's a benefit to the county. It goes into, I'm sure Patty or Barner can definitely speak more in tune to what this is, but it doesn't come back as a trade-in, which you would see in net out of here. What these do include is some of the bigger V boxes and equipment that for if and when we get brine, we're purchasing that equipment now. There's a line down here also that has a bunch of question marks. We're looking through what the cost of replacing our current fleet to get up to speed for what the brine would need. But these new trucks here in 25 only consist of the value of the truck and the upgrades that would need to account for brine and the salt winter maintenance.
Okay.
There's no further questions. We'll flip right over to page 10. Here we have our highway projects. The first line, the transportation infrastructure improvements. What this includes is 13 miles at roughly $230,000 per mile as that is the cost for now. For our highway crew to do the work internally of repaving the roads. These may start to grow. For years, we have been able to just simply overlay the asphalt on these roads. They're starting to become too high where we also need to start milling to bring that back down. So some of these future numbers you may see start to rise just a little bit. We can bring that to bid. We can get better pricing on that as opposed to going by piece, road by road operation. This also includes culvert work. It includes parking lot money. There's different parking lots. We have a whole plan internally put by one of our highway engineers to start addressing parking lots like KCBC, KCC. Some we may be able to do internally with our highway department. Some we may need to go out and third party consult, but the money would sit here just simply because if it is our highway department doing it, that's where the funds are going to come from. Typically, you don't see a revenue offset in here, but as a part of the 13 miles that we have proposed for 25, there is LRIP funding for the materials of doing Highway K. And our guys will do that, but then we will get reimbursement from the state for the materials that up to $374,000 for doing that. In blue, I'm going to skip the highway winter operations. We'll come back to that one. Highway E and Y intersection safety improvements. This is new on here. These are some, I should back up. Prior, I think everybody knows Greg is 2 months into the county. A lot of these numbers are based off of what the Clement had put together. The numbers that are in white below, a good majority of those are what had Clement proposed. A lot of this other stuff has been adjusted by Greg as he dug in, as he's looked at some of the SMAs, realized where funding may be, realizing what projects are up next. We had to obviously revamp some of those numbers. Some of those things now come up here in this blue, such as the EY intersection where we're getting funds. These are safety improvements for the traffic signals at the EY intersection. We also have funds coming for the Highway F multi-use trail, which is a first that I think everybody here would hear about, which goes from the KCVMP Park out to the Ice Age Trail, which is in the town of Bassett. Beyond that, Greg is your guy for answers on what that entails. The Highway O, this was something that we were looking at previously being able to do in-house. As they dug into it, as they did the engineering, they realized because of certain constraints and different things that would be difficult for our highway crew to do. It's better if it goes to bid and we have a third party do it, and that's why you see that broken out in blue. I'll go back up to the highway winter operations facility. We said that because it's much easier than saying salt shed repeatedly. But that's essentially what we're looking at here is the salt shed that we have at KCC is getting far past its useful life. If we were to keep it, we're going to need to replace the whole roof. We're going to have to do structural enhancements to be able to keep it from blowing. It is a wood structure. With brine coming in on the horizon, as we kind of talked about, we would need a bigger facility to be able to account for that. So that's what this is. It's going from holding roughly 13,000 tons to an estimated 17,000 tons, as well as providing for spacing for the brining equipment that we would need and a lean-to for different things to go within the outside. This is all part of a survey and analysis that the highway department has been doing of their overall operations and facility. I say that because they're 80 to 90% through that. In next year's budget, you'll likely start seeing some of these other recommendations that they've made. But the main objective, the main pinpoint of what that is to address the winter operations facility first. And that's why you see it addressed here. The 350 is for the design of that. If there's any other questions or any questions at all, Supervisor Belsky.
Refresh my memory on County K. The phase 2 construction, did that go to 104th or does it go to the interstate frontage?
So phase 2 goes to just before that frontage road. I think it's 115th. There's a trailer park, Harley Davidson, right in that vicinity. So it'll go from that 92nd court to there. Yeah, it'll go through 104th.
It jumps over to the other side.
Right.
And that may have to be reevaluated when the casino comes. Okay, thank you.
There are no other questions.
Chris, on the prior page 9, and then on this page 10, how does the KR 75 swap affect this?
I'll let Shelley or Greg actually handle that one. I know that there's signage that's gonna be involved, but I'll let them take that.
We've always maintained those roads anyway, so the maintenance responsibility doesn't change when we swap, State Highway 75 for County Trunk Highway KR. So maintenance wise, there is no change. We're working with truck routing and how we get paid to the state for maintenance. So the team is working on that to see if we have to reroute a truck. Outside of that, it's signage. So the state will pay us to re-sign County Truck KR to State Highway 195. But the county ourselves, we will have to pay to change out the signage along 75 to rename it to its new county road. We'll do that with in-house staff, but also have materials and labor to change that with $100,000-ish.
That answers.
I should point out right behind page 10, it doesn't hold a number, but this is what it in orangish. You'll see what we have already paid in 24. I know the fund is quite small, but what we also have coming up in 24, there's a large 2025. We're obviously not doing 22 miles of paving, but these are the options that they're looking at. They could sway one way or the other based on needs that we need to address in 2025. That's the green version. And then in pink, you're seeing some of these contracted projects that are ongoing there in the future, just to give everybody a whole view of what's going on countywide between all the paving. So I will flip over to page 11. Planning and development. On here, brand new, you'll see a vehicle for $50,000. Where this came from is the current F-150 that they have completely died, unusable for roads. They have two other vehicles that they can use and utilize. However, those vehicles are also 20 years old. It's only a matter of time until we get to the point where those are run down. We send them to auction. This $50,000 will give them a vehicle that is reliable, that they don't have to worry about if it breaks down, what do we do? And that's the remainder of Public Works. If anybody has any questions for P&D or Public Works. We'll flip right over to law enforcement. I've not had the pleasure yet of working with Kelly. So I know the dryer and the kitchen equipment is on here. I know they're new from the years. I'm sure that somebody from the department can obviously better answer why this is on here. But we also have the body cameras, which is an every year expense, and the fleet vehicles, which is an every year expense.
Does anyone have any questions about the equipment?
You see no trucks. That's good.
It's just the equipment is dilapidated. It's been repaired over and over and over for a very long time. The dryer is huge. It takes DC, launder all over stuff, obviously. And, we house about 800 people. So they're constantly running for years and years and years. So that's what that's for. The kitchen equipment, kind of a generic line right there. Dishwasher, the pre-trial facility. An oven, a stand chopper, meat slicer, a dough sheeter. I looked that up. That was, but it's basically the dilapidated equipment in the detention setting for providing food for both facilities.
All right, we'll jump right down to joint services. There's obviously zero across the board currently. The only reason that we showed this is because you may have noticed that under each line, we did point out what the bonding was for that division for the prior year, just for comparison. We did have $355,000 that was associated with that division last year. It's again zero. You'll see at the very bottom, total of all departments was the 19,385. That is what we bonded for last year. The number we currently are showing is 22,973. Again, we're going to take information that we have, that we still have coming forth, for instance, the highway equipment, and then things kind of start to push out. I like to call it, quote unquote, squeezing the snake, of where you kind of push money out because you need to make it balance within the bonding years. So The final.
That's a visual.
Was a couple.
Yeah, that was a cup for, terminology that we just kept. Yeah. The final page that we have here is this page 13. This just gives a different overview of some of the things. You won't see this in the budget book. This is simply us taking a pivot table of Excel of some of the things that you're seeing. It gives you an overall view of what the revenue is that you can see by year, and then it gives you a different view of what is building improvements and different things to look at. And unless there's no other questions, I believe my job is kind of done here for today.
I do have one announcement that I wanted to let everyone know. I'd like to send out an email at some point here shortly, as to all those supervisors. We're looking at, the budget books, determining whether or not everyone needs a paper budget book. So we'll be sending an email out, and if you prefer not to have a budget book, a paper budget book, physical book, and a link to the website will be to be sent out at the same time, so everyone can access that. But if you do need a paper budget, I'd like supervisors to respond to that. So if we can cut down on killing a few more trees, we'd like to do that. Thank you.
Barna, can you give a little overview of the timeline in October, just so that everybody can be on the same page?
Sure. So Tuesday, October 1st will be when the county executive will be presenting the 2025 budget. From that point until October 21st, that'll begin the budget hearings at the Finance and Admin Committee. In between that October 1st and the 21st, the oversight committees will have the departments that report to them, present. Those committees will hear those budgets. They could make recommendations regarding budget adjustments, and those will be taken up by the Finance and Admin Committee during the budget hearings the week of October 21st. That'll be for 4 days. For the first 3 days of that week, we'll be going through every department's budget from A to Z. And on the fourth day, on Thursday, we go through the budget resolution, which includes all the language that is part of the budget process, and the initial resolution, which is the first step in getting the bonding covered for our capital projects. And then on November 6th and 7th, that's when we'll be looking towards final approval.
Supervisor Kirby, I saw you first.
Can we get those budgets and the budget book in Excel?
Yes, at that same time, I think when I send out the link to the budget, we'll be making available a kind of an Excel sortable type of document.
Let's go.
For those that would like those.
Thank you.
Sure.
So just give me straight up paper.
Just so you know that sortable version will not be, you will not be allowed to change any numbers.
That's fine.
Supervisor Grady.
Thank you. Just in terms of going to market for bonding, taking a look at where we're at financially as compared to last budgetary cycle, I'm not asking you to predict your crystal ball where it will be in the future. Where we're at now, can you just give us an idea what you think we're at interest rate wise?
For borrowing next year, I really don't know. The Fed is looking at cutting interest rates, how that will affect the bond market. Sometimes bond market responds
I'll rephrase it.
volatility.
If we're going to market today, as opposed to where we went last year, last budgetary cycle, where are we at?
The notes that we just sold, we sold at an interest rate of, our bids came in at 2.89%.
Okay.
What, I mean, it would be great if we could be that low next year. The projections are put together by Ellers, as you know, and those projections will be part of the initial resolution conversation. They'll be looking at more current rates and trends and expectations, and they'll have projections based on that.
So currently sub 3%. Okay.
Correct.
Very good. Thank you. That's my question.
Patty, can you just go over for the newer supervisors who might not know, again, our bond rating is a significant part of that. And again, the meeting was in July, the end of July.
Yes, I mean, you have all been on the board now to be through the last steps of the bonding process. You haven't been in this first initial resolution component, but in July, we bring forward the authorizing resolution for the items that were in that year's budget. We go through that list and determine the things that are happening or things like we're not getting build slots, so we're not going to borrow for the trucks we can't order. And then we come up with some revised numbers. We also put together a rating agency presentation and meet with the rating agency. We have secured a AAA rating for 4 years now, and that is what drives that lower interest rate. As you may recall, when we went to sale, we had 16 bids, and the range of those bids were from the lowest of 2.89 to slightly over 3%. So those things they help to keep that interest in line. So we continue to strive to follow best practices, have our policies in place and follow them, and be fiscally responsible. And those are things that the rating agencies look at.
Last thing from Barna, the bond, our debt reduction policy. So the number that we have to shoot for, that wasn't talked about at the beginning, just
Right, so in our last permutation of the debt reduction plan, we had a projection for 2025 to be 20 million. This first draft, we're almost at 23 million. We do have a provision within our plan that allows for legacy projects to not be included as part of that. Potentially, the ceremonial courtroom portion could be excluded as part of that, but we're still working through those numbers. The goal is to obviously make sure that we're complying with that plan.
all right. Thank you. Any other questions for the finance team for anybody here tonight? Supervisor Decker.
On the bottom of page 12, it says, and I may have missed this, total all department 2024 bonding, 19,385,000. Where's that number come from?
That was last year's.
That comes from the 2024
Okay, so,
CIP.
and that was minus what we didn't bond for.
This is what was in the budget. That's not the actual borrowing.
Okay.
The borrowing was 18.5.
So this was budget, okay,
Correct.
not actual. Okay, thank you.
Seen any other questions? Okay. All right. Well, I just want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. And I know there's a football game that I guess started a little while ago.
Unfortunately, it was delayed by weather, so.
I just want to say I really appreciate everybody's time and attention tonight. Again, thank you so much.